I'm working on hardboard, and this is really inexpensive. Any hardware store will sell this. You can buy great big huge sheets and then they'll cut it down to different sizes for you. Size wise, this is about 26 by maybe 14. I haven't measured it. I like to have plenty of space to work on. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a background that speaks of my story of grief and loss. And so I've gathered up some things beside me as resources. This book here, which is a Jim Holtz mixed media, like a craft book, and it's full of beautiful old looking papers, and I just love this. This reminds me a lot of my family. My gran, my great-gran, lots and lots of family. I come from a very big family. So I like that, so I'm going to keep that beside me. And this here is a music book. It's a book which has music in, very old music written. And I found it in an ancient bookshop, which I just love. I love going in there and go down into the down underneath into the music area, and there's just loads and loads of these amazing old books. So some I keep for art journaling and some I use to tear out to use in this kind of way. So this is a really, really old book, and I love the feel of both of these because they're old. And also this, like the colours, it's a Gudrun Schoden catalogue full of her beautiful, beautiful art clothing. She's an artist and she designs beautiful, beautiful clothes, and she's amazing. So I just love the look of the colours that are in here, and I might just tear out one or two bits from that. I've also got these. I've got a great big book full of sheets of paper like this. It's really, really big book. That's a piece that I've already used bits from. I'll just spend a little bit of time just working my way through, just tearing out pieces that just interest me. I mean, I love that. I might actually keep hold of that. That's not speaking to me right now, nor is that. So, but this I really like. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time gathering up lots of pieces of papers that just seem to speak of my story of grief and loss, and I'm going to bring them back here and we'll make a start. So if you could go through magazines, you might have some boxes of bits of paper and tissue. I mean, I've got lots and lots of boxes with tissues and all sorts of bits of papers in. Old greetings cards, wrapping paper, anything at all that just appeals to you, bring it back to where we're working, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so there's no rush and you can't possibly get this wrong. Just let your fingers be in charge of choosing, and that will be your intuition speaking rather than your mind analysing. So here I am. It's taken me maybe 20 minutes of just a very relaxed, loose kind of gathering of papers. And so this is what I've brought with me. I don't know if it's enough. I might want more and I'll go back and get some. But this is what I've begun with. So pieces of paper that has got airmail letters on. And these were from that catalogue of clothes. Bit of map. Some bees and wasps, insects. Little bit of paper in blues. That pinky, lovely pinky flower that I picked up by chance. Some flowers. this sort of dusky, lilac-y, plummy sort of pink. Off a Christmas card, off a Christmas card, Christmas card, Christmas card. So all these things come in handy, you know, if you just gather them up. There's that music paper from that old book. And then some of this other craft paper from that big book that I mentioned. So I'm just having them sitting beside me. Just sort of scattered around so I can see them. More from the catalogue and more from that big book. I'm just tearing a little bit of excess pulp off the back because some of these papers are quite thick. This is just that bit of white that's sticking over from underneath, like that. As I was tearing, I came across the pink and I thought, oh wow, that feels like a heart. And that looks like my little dog who passed away 2 years ago. And so he was black and this is bright pink and red, but it just looks like him, so I'm keeping that there in case I use it. I've mixed up some PVA glue, just ordinary school glue with a little bit of water, so it's, you know, it's runny-ish but not overly wet. Just a little bit of water and a gluey brush which I'm going to use to attach the papers, and I'm just going to make a start. So using just the glue or Pebeo gel medium or Liquitex, whatever you have decided to use, just begin by attaching papers, and if you can work fairly quickly. I only say that because it stops us from thinking too much or getting into a thinky place, because once I start thinking, my critic pops right out and that sort of plays havoc for me and gets in the way of me just being. I've got a damp cloth beside me to keep wiping my fingers with the glue. So what else have I got beside me here? I really like these from the magazine, the clothing magazine. It really does come in handy, just, you know, if you've got any brochures, travel brochures, anything really, magazines that you come across, greetings cards, anything, just do your best to, anything that kind of just grabs your attention, tear it out and keep it, because it might come in handy for something like this. So I'm just attaching them wherever it feels just right to me. That's not a right or wrong thing, just as in it feels right to my gut in that moment. Yep. And you know, these things might get layered on top of, they might not. You know, so some things might disappear and some things might stay visible. I like the warm colours in that alongside the grey. Now this PVA glue will dry clear, so you don't need to worry about covering it over the top. So yeah, do my best to work in a fairly quick-ish way, because it really does help me not to think and analyse in terms of my inner critic, because my inner critic's a male and he loves to sort of just meddle a little bit with my thoughts and feelings, and he really can play havoc. If I start thinking, oh, should I have put that there, and why have I put that there, and What does that mean? Then it can just sort of sabotage the whole thing for me. It's absolutely a bleak midwinter out there tonight. We've had howling winds and it's very cold. And I've got 2 fleeces on, oops, to keep cosy. I'm going to put that up there somewhere. So we don't need to worry about why we've put something and where we've put something. Just go with your gut, trust. It's all going to be just fine, however it works out. So when I was little, music was a very big part of my childhood. My parents were in a band, my uncle was in a band, my gran played piano. I, with a little bit of help from her, taught myself to play and read music. She got me set off on the journey and I started making sense of it all. So music has been around for a very long time, and it makes me feel really, really happy, and it can really help me to express how I'm feeling when maybe I don't quite know myself. I can play certain songs and somehow that just helps me to feel better somehow, just for having sung along or listened to that song, whatever that song was. That piece of paper there really, really reminds me of my gran. We used to go and gather Michaelmas daisies and grasses in the field, the big field. We used to go walking a lot. I feel like I want something dark again, so I'm going to add some more of this. So just notice the kind of things that you say to yourself, like I just said then, I want something dark. So if you can let yourself have that thing if it's possible. And these papers they've got quite a bit of dark in them. Okay, I'm just going to trust and keep going. I don't know why I like these wasps so much, but I do, very much. I'm going to include them. They feel important somehow. So I love working on hardboard because I can get it framed at the end when I'm finished. Oh yeah, I love those. I feel like I'm wanting quite a lot of dark papers on this side and then more pinkier, softer colours on that side. I feel quite dreamy and relaxed actually. When I was about 13, I, one day out of the blue, received an airmail letter. There's an airmail, piece of airmail paper. And I had no idea who this was from. And I just didn't know what it was about or why I was getting it. So I opened the letter, and inside it was all fragrant, and it had lots and lots of pages and pages written in this beautiful, really cursive handwriting, and in all different colours like blue and green and pink. And I was amazed. I'd never received a letter like that in my life. In fact, I'm not sure if I'd ever received a letter before. So I was very excited about this letter, and it was from a girl called Judy who lived in Michigan in America, and her school and our school, where I was at, had done this sort of pen pal thing, and I must have put my name down to receive, you know, to hear from pen pals. And that was the beginning of something amazing for me, because I don't know, it just lit my life up, receiving these letters, and I used to love writing letters back. And then we sort of lost contact. Maybe 4 years later, I moved. She was in a relationship by then. And I often think about Judy and wonder where she is. See, that was a real loss when I lost contact with her. We must have just let it sort of drift, which is sad. This is from a Christmas card. Just some trees. I really like them. Reminds me of the forest where we go walking. So you might like to just notice any stories that come up in you as you are adding your papers to your board or whatever it is you're working on. Just notice. Let your story unfold in your mind if you want to know about it, if you want to hear it again, or you know, maybe you don't want to know about it and you can change just look at something else. You don't have to stick with it. But you might like to revisit things, you might not. It's quite a thick card, this one. I need some more of the PVA. Just noticing that these are quite subdued sort of colours that I've been adding, and this is about grief and loss, so I guess that's probably not a surprise. It wasn't chosen on purpose, but it's turning out that way. I wonder what sort of colours your papers are. I love that. It makes me think of wallpaper from my grand's house. This one and this one and this one. Oops, stuck that on there. I just noticed myself saying, oh no, not more dark, but yeah, that's what I said then as I added that, or I was about to add it. Maybe there's just been so much dark, as in loss, and there has been. It was nice to remember Judy when I picked up the airmail letters. There's another one there. So far I've got all the music from my childhood in here, and my gran, and I guess the woods, really, my gran, and then some dark, really dark areas here which feel like quite deathly. I guess that is the word, deathly. And grief and loss doesn't have to be about death though. It can be about well, losing contact with Judy, for example, or an experience in school which took you away from your learning, perhaps. It can be anything. I don't know if you can see that. That's actually got some burgundy and grey in there. It's rather lovely, but it does look very dark. There's that word again. So this background is letting us know about our grief and our losses. This is from a Christmas card. Somebody sent me it from Newcastle, and to me it's just absolutely beautiful. And it reminds me of a very big loss indeed. When I was, when would it be? Ooh, quite some time ago anyway. I burnt out and became rather poorly, and I eventually decided, after making art and realising what was what for me, that I needed to do things for me after all, and stop pleasing others so much and all of that kind of stuff. And so I left, and my job was in Newcastle, and my goodness, that was a tough decision, not a quick decision. And then quite a time of grieving afterwards. So there I am revisiting that, and I don't really have an awful lot of feeling about it now, because I think I've worked through quite a lot of it. But for a while, and I used music to help me with that, I listened to Big River by Jimmy Nail, and I listened to it and listened to it and sang along and wept, and eventually I was able to listen to it without crying and felt much better. Do you know that white glistening card there is so beautiful. I want this little fox in. It reminds me, I think it is a fox, a little white fox. It's from a Christmas card, but it reminds me of a dog. I'm just going to put him, didn't realise it was a him, do now. I'm going to pop him there. Yeah. Making me think about, when we're without an animal at the moment, and we lost our dog and we haven't had any more animals since. And it's the first time ever I've been without an animal. Okay, I'm liking how this is looking. I went off to look for some warmth, and I've come back with these little bits of tissue and wrapping paper, and I noticed they're quite pinky and lilac-y, and as I was tearing them, I said to myself that they reminded me of my grandmother, and that I was looking for some comfort, and she gave me a great deal of comfort. And so yeah, looking for some soothing right now. And I feel like putting this in amongst these darker areas here, which feel quite laden. I'm realising that when I was younger, I didn't tell anybody anything. I really kept things to myself, not on purpose. I just wasn't the kind of, whatever that is, I wasn't a child or a teen who said very much. You know, I didn't sort of come running in and say, hey, mom, gran, blah, blah, blah. I just kind of got on with things as they were, however they were, I just got on with them. And yeah, I'm just realising that. Again, I mean, I've realised this before when I've worked, but it's sort of sinking in again as I work. Gosh, yes, I really didn't say very much. I didn't ask for very much support. I didn't reach out for anything very much. And it's not as if it wouldn't have been there for me if I'd have asked. It most definitely would. Oh wow, I love that. Gosh. Love that tissue on there. Kind of want it everywhere. It's reminding me of my gran though, and she was so loving with me and she just gave me so much. She did. Just putting little bits of pink here and there, as if, you know, I'm putting little bits of my gran here and there to soothe parts of my grieving story as I tell it. Gosh, that's lovely as well. Wow. Well, my gran's love was lovely for me. I felt very grateful and lucky and all of those kind of things. Do you know, I wonder if I've got any more of that tissue because I want more of it. Whew, so I'm going to go in search of that now. Okay, back in a bit. In fact, I'm going to put this little bit of pink heart that I found in first. I'm going to put it there. As I was putting the glue on there, I thought, oh no, but I might lose that. It might get covered over. But I'm going to trust it's all going to work out just fine. Okay, back in a mo. I'm going to go in search of tissue. Sadly, I can't find any more tissue, but I found some little bits of it's the same pattern but in wrapping paper. So I've brought it because that just seems to give me a lot of comfort. So I'm going to add that. I feel like I want to put something in up there. Like that piece of map. That's America and Canada. Now, interestingly, when I was 17, I wanted to go to San Francisco and live for a while. I wasn't sure why or how long, and I did work for an airline, so it would have been very possible to get some work in there, you know, based over there for them. However, I'd got myself into a relationship which, as I look back, was not good for me, but at the time I didn't know that. And I was very young, and I didn't go because he didn't want me to go. He wanted me to stay here in Britain, and so I stayed, unfortunately, and then missed out on going over there. So that's quite a big loss, isn't it? It feels like a big loss to me. Something I really wanted to do. I can't even explain why. I don't know why I wanted to go there, but I most definitely did want to go there. Funny, isn't it, how we can have these, well, I can have these kind of desires, sort of out of the blue, really. A bit like my obsession with horse riding when I was a teen. I always wanted a horse, and you know, we didn't have anywhere to keep a horse, but I got to work at some stables, which was wonderful. I got to be around horses a lot for years. Yeah, just realising there's another loss. I didn't get to have my own horse. Well, I did when I was older. When I was in my 30s, I bought my own horse, but so wanted one when I was little. I feel like I can't get enough of this. Like it wouldn't be enough. No matter how much I add, it's not going to be enough. And I'm going to have to leave this to dry, unfortunately, because I want to keep going with it. But I am going to have to let it dry. I feel like I'm putting these pieces on that symbolise my grandmother's love to soothe me about this loss or that loss, make me feel better. And funnily enough, for all it's just a piece of wrapping paper, it helps. It really does. This is actually from an old book, and I love it. It's got lots of chickens and a duck dashing top speed that way. And when I was about 12 or 13 at the stables where I worked, I rescued some chickens from a horrible, one of those battery places where they're just never out of their cages, and whew, yeah, awful, horrible. And so yeah, I did. We broke in. I'm laughing, it's really serious. And we took these birds and we got them out and we took them to the barn and we looked after them, and they were allowed to stay out, and they grew their feathers back, and one of them only had one eye. It was so sad to see. But she did really well, and she was so happy living in the barn with the Shetlands. And she was able to sort of roam around, and she had 2 or 3 friends with her. Funnily enough, we didn't get into trouble for that. When they found out, the grown-ups, they didn't really tell us off. And we weren't, you know, we were allowed to keep them. Well, they were free to roam. Okay, keep looking at my little dog that I tore. I just tore bits of paper up. There's another piece that's left. And this piece here just ended up looking like a little dog sitting. He's sort of sitting, there's his head and his little black nose looking over that way. And I want to include him, and I've got this awful feeling that he'll get covered up and lost. But I'm going to do it because I lost my dog and he's part of my story. So I'm popping him in there and trusting that I won't lose sight of him in here. How do I feel? I feel tired, but a good sort of tired, and I don't feel sad. Given the things that I'm talking about whilst I do this, I feel energised and quite happy. Surrounded by my grand's love, my little dog, the chickens that we freed. My lost dreams of going to San Francisco. The job that I had to leave because, well, it was either saving my soul and my health, or I guess really going under. So I chose me and my health. So as I look at this, I know it is literally just a patchwork of bits of catalogue papers, wrapping paper, craft papers, music paper. I know that, a few Christmas cards, and yet it looks so familiar. I love it. So as you add your papers, just trust it's all going to pan out just fine. I've got some gaps still, I can see little bits of hardboard coming through, but that's okay. And then when this is dry, I'll come back and see what I'm going to do next. I've no idea what I'm going to do next. I just know that this is about grief and loss, and we'll see what happens as it unfolds. So take your time. You might like to journal, write down notes if anything or anybody or any events come to mind. You could make a note and afterwards, while this is drying, go and reflect on those people, events in your journal. And let yourself know that you're listening, because that's a really important process to really notice ourselves and listen and be empathic with ourselves, because that helps us to relax very deeply. Just take your time, there's no rush, and just trust. However it all unfolds is for the right reason, it's how it's meant to be. I've come back out here and I put away the papers that I had left lying because they didn't feel so important to me right now. And I've been and gathered just a few more pieces of paper here. And it feels really important to add them when I've got that feeling of wanting them. So I'm just going to, put these in. Now this is the back of that Christmas card, that angel, the Angel of the North by Antony Gormley. So that was the front of the card, and on the back there was just a tiny thin, almost like a bookmark size image, the same image. So I wanted that again for some reason. Maybe I haven't said enough about it, so I'm adding it in order to say more, if that makes sense. And still wanting more of the pink love, which I find very soothing. I feel like I want quite a lot of that. I was writing in a journal about this last night, and I believe when I was adding these bits here, the parts that I said were like my grand's love, I believe that is to help soothe me over my losses, because my gran really did love me and teach me about love, and she also soothed me whenever I was upset or something had happened. You know, she was the place I went to for regulation. I don't mean that in a controlling way, I'm talking about regulation of the nervous system. Yeah, I don't feel like I've got enough of this on here right now. So I'm just going to do it while it feels right for me somehow. If there's anything else you want to add, just go ahead and add it. Just trust that it's going to be for the exactly needed. It's all going to work out just fine. Yeah, my gran was very important to me, and gave me a lot. And I didn't get a chance to say any of these things to her before she died. And I've done a lot of work on that, but I would like to have said these things to her. So this image here it's out of an old sort of fairy tale book, and it's of a male. It makes me think of Midsummer for some reason. Maybe it's from that story, I don't know. And it's a gentleman dressed up in rather romantic looking clothing. I'm not sure when this was, but this gentleman here, has to go in here because he's part of a very big story in my life, very big, spanning quite a lot of years. And yeah, he taught me a lot, and I experienced quite a lot of pain in response to his love, if that's what it was. I guess it was love of sorts. And here I am. That's just a little picture out of a magazine of a girl. So yes, that feels very important, and I will take some time to write in my journal about that again. I've really spent many years on this particular relationship, and it's absolutely over and done with, but in my heart there's still some sore parts because, well, it's showing up again, so that to me says there's still something left to heal. And so by including this and doing some reflective writing, that will help me with that healing, I believe. But we're often taught to avoid our feelings, our big emotions, the big stuff, the painful stuff. But for me, my opinion, my belief is to go towards that pain and feel it, because once I actually approach it and feel it, then there's an opportunity to heal it and move on from it, rather than leave it lying dormant somewhere untouched, not looked at. Oh, yeah, wow. So now I look at it, it actually feels complete. I wasn't sure what was missing, but when I came across these two images, I realised it's amazing how it happens. It's like, let your fingers go for a wander around all your bits of papers, and it will come up with those things that are needed, and they were most definitely needed. And my grand's love was needed for more support and care for me. So yes, wow. So that's that layer, telling the story of my losses. I'm going to sit with this and reflect in my journal and just see how I feel when I come back to it. So just take the time that you need to reflect in your journal, and if you have a sense of things being missing, like they were missing for me, and I needed to say more about my career coming to an end as it did, just take that time. Trust that whatever you choose and attach will be very relevant and needed, and then maybe spend a little bit of time reflecting again on those things. Let them dry, and then meet you back here to take it to the next step.